I'm sure we've all got our stories to tell of nightmare scenarios at work, but I've got a couple, and I'm going to share them briefly with you today. Now, my first corporate job, I was working in IT consulting, and I was working in the States. And my nightmare moment was when I heard via a colleague that the head of HR had been talking about me. Now, what had he said? "What is wrong with Shola? She's afraid of her own shadow. She wouldn't say bull to a goose. What is wrong with her?" Can you imagine how embarrassing that was to hear from a colleague that that's what was said about you? Now, there's typically no smoke without fire, and a couple of weeks later, I was called into the managing director's office. They felt that I hadn't been pulling my weight in the job. They felt that because I hadn't been speaking up enough, that I was either being lazy or just wasn't up to it. But I was an introvert, and introverts typically struggle to speak up spontaneously in meetings. So I thought, okay, maybe they're going to find me a mentor, or maybe they're going to perhaps put me on a course. But instead, they put me on probation. I had a few weeks to turn things around, and if I wasn't able to do that, then I was out of the job. And that meant also, because my visa was attached to that particular situation, I'd also be out of the country. So no pressure. Luckily for me, one of my colleagues volunteered to come in and support me a little bit in the mornings, and I ended up staying in that job for another 4 or so years. But any of you here sometimes have problems with speaking up at work? Okay, quite a few of you do, yes. I thought my problems were over, but when I came back to the UK, I was now working for a company in a more senior role. This was around the time of the Twin Towers. So tragically, when that happened, as we know, the airline industry started to bomb for a while. One of our big clients, I can't tell you the name, but their initials were BA. They decided to cut a lot of work from my company. So our company was now looking to cut headcount. And of course, whose was the first head to get cut off? It was mine. And again, it was because, Shola, you're not speaking up enough in meetings. So as you can imagine, that was quite a difficult time for me. Here's a picture of a P45. I don't want to see one of those again. It's a difficult time, but I realized then that I really had to take control. And for me, the turnaround came from obviously taking training. It came from personal development. And importantly, it came from being authentic and realizing that I'm enough as I am. I've just got to add a few skills to that, but there's no reason to change or to be a different person to speak up more at work.